The applause was deafening, but somehow it felt like silence. I stood there in the back of the room, hands trembling slightly, watching my daughter smile under the golden lights of her dream, her restaurant, finally alive. Cameras flashed. Glasses clinked. People leaned in, waiting for her speech. And then she began thanking everyone who made it possible. Everyone except me. I still remember the day she first told me about it. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind where the world feels paused. And she came into my living room with that familiar spark in her eyes. The same one she had as a child when she'd show me her drawings or talk about becoming something big. "Dad," she said, sitting beside me, her voice softer than usual. "I found a place." I looked at her, confused. "A place?" "For the restaurant," she smiled, almost nervously. "It's perfect. Small, but it has potential." She pulled out her phone, showing me pictures. Bare walls, worn floors, chipped counters. To most people, it would have looked like nothing. But to her, it was everything. And to me, it became everything too. We spent hours talking that day. She told me about her menu ideas, her vision, the atmosphere she wanted to create. I could hear the passion in every word, feel the years of quiet dreaming finally finding a voice. "What about funding?" I asked carefully. Her smile faded just a little. "I've been saving, but it's not enough." There it was, the unspoken ask. I didn't hesitate. "You'll have it," I said simply. Her eyes widened. "Dad, no, I wasn't asking you to." "I know," I interrupted gently, "but I'm offering." She stared at me, searching my face like she was trying to understand if I was serious. I was. Over the next few weeks, we met often. We went through budgets, permits, timelines. I watched her transform from my little girl into someone driven, determined, almost unrecognizable in her focus, and somewhere in between spreadsheets and coffee-stained plans. I transferred the money, $310,000. Not as a gift. Not exactly as a business deal either. Somewhere in between. A loan, yes, but more than that, it was trust. It was belief. It was love. "Are you sure?" she asked me the day I handed her the documents. "I've never been more sure of anything," I told her. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "I won't let you down." At the time, I believed her without question. The months that followed were a blur of progress. Construction started. The place began to change. Walls repainted. Lights installed, furniture arriving piece by piece. I visited often, sometimes just to watch, sometimes to help where I could. She didn't ask me to, but I wanted to be there. I met her husband there a few times, too. He was polite, always respectful, but distant in a way I couldn't quite place. He mostly stayed on the sidelines, occasionally offering suggestions, but never fully involved. Then there were her in-laws. They started showing up more frequently as the opening date got closer. Loud, enthusiastic, always talking about their daughter's success. I didn't mind at first. Family is family, after all. One evening, I overheard her mother-in-law telling someone, "We've supported her from day one." I paused for a moment, unsure if I heard it right. But I brushed it off. Maybe she meant emotional support. Still, something about it lingered. A small, quiet discomfort. About a month before the opening, my daughter seemed different. Not distant exactly, but busier. Harder to reach. Our long conversations became short updates. Our weekly dinners turned into quick check-ins. "I'm just overwhelmed, Dad," she'd say. "There's so much to handle." And I understood. I really did. But there were moments, brief, almost invisible, where I felt like I was standing just outside her world instead of being part of it. One night, I brought up the loan casually. "Once things settle," I said, "we can figure out a comfortable repayment plan." She hesitated. "Yeah, of course," she replied, but her tone lacked the certainty it once had. It wasn't refusal. It wasn't even resistance. Just hesitation. And for the first time, doubt crept in. The invitation to the grand opening came a week later. It was beautifully designed, elegant, professional. My name was printed like every other guest. Not Dad. Just my name. I told myself I was overthinking it. The night of the opening, the restaurant looked nothing like it once had. It was stunning. Warm lighting, carefully arranged tables, a soft hum of conversation filling the air. It felt alive. I stood near the back, watching her move through the crowd. Confident. Graceful, exactly who she always dreamed of becoming. Pride swelled in my chest. This was her moment, and I was happy to just witness it. Then the music softened and someone tapped a glass. It was time for her speech. She stepped forward, microphone in hand, her smile bright but controlled. The room quieted instantly. "I just want to say thank you," she began, her voice steady. "This journey hasn't been easy, and I couldn't have done it alone." I leaned slightly forward, listening. She started with her husband, thanking him for his unwavering support. Then she turned to his parents. "My incredible in-laws," she said warmly, "who believed in me and contributed $25,000 to help bring this dream to life." Applause filled the room. I nodded, clapping along. Of course she'd thank them. That made sense. Then she continued. Friends, mentors, even her staff. Name after name, contribution after contribution. I waited and waited. My hands slowly stopped clapping. Maybe she was saving it for last. Maybe she wanted to end on something meaningful. But as her speech began to wrap up, a strange, hollow feeling settled in my chest. "And to everyone who came tonight," she said finally, smiling out at the crowd, "thank you for being part of this special moment." More applause. Louder this time. "Final, complete." She stepped back. And my name was never spoken. For a moment I couldn't move. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was confusion. A quiet, disorienting kind of confusion that made everything around me feel slightly unreal. Did she forget? No, she couldn't have. $310,000 isn't something you forget. Then what was it? I looked at her across the room as people surrounded her, congratulating her, hugging her. She laughed, smiled, accepted every word of praise. And not once did her eyes search for me. Not once. That hollow feeling deepened. Something wasn't right. And for the first time since this journey began, I felt like I didn't recognize my own daughter. A few minutes later, as the crowd shifted and the music picked back up, she finally looked in my direction. Our eyes met. For a brief second, everything else faded. I expected something. A smile, a nod, an acknowledgment. Instead, her expression tightened, just slightly, and then she looked away. Like I was just another guest. That's when I realized this wasn't an accident. And whatever was coming next, I wasn't prepared for it. The moment she looked away, something inside me quietly broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a small, clean fracture. I stayed where I was for a few seconds longer, letting the noise of the room wash over me. Laughter, clinking glasses, voices layered on top of each other. It all felt distant, like I was underwater. I could have walked up to her right then. I could have asked calmly, why? But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew this wasn't something that would be explained in a single sentence. So I waited. It took nearly 20 minutes before she approached me. By then, I had moved closer to the side of the room, away from the center, where the lights felt a little dimmer and the attention didn't linger as long. "Dad," she said, her voice careful, measured. Not warm, not cold, just careful. I turned to her, studying her face. She looked exactly the same features, same eyes, but something behind them had shifted, like a door had quietly closed. "You did well," I said. And I meant it. For a brief second, she looked relieved. "Thank you." A pause settled between us. I didn't want to circle around it. I didn't want to pretend. So I asked, "You forgot something?" Her expression changed instantly. Not confusion, not surprise, recognition. "I didn't forget," she said softly. The words landed heavier than I expected. "Then why?" I asked, my voice quieter now, steadier than I felt. She glanced over her shoulder, toward her husband, toward his parents, toward the people who were still celebrating her. Moment. It wasn't the right time, she said. I frowned. The right time to acknowledge who made this possible? Her jaw tightened slightly. "Dad, please." "Not here." That sentence, "not here," told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about timing. This was about hiding. We stepped outside. The air was cooler, quieter. The noise from inside became a dull hum behind the closed door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she exhaled slowly, like she had been holding something in for too long. "They don't know," she said. I felt something sink in my chest. "Don't know what?" I asked, even though part of me already understood. "About the money." she replied. The full amount. I stared at her. They think it was smaller. That most of it came from other sources. Other sources? I repeated. She hesitated. Investments, savings, some help from them. The 25,000? I asked. She nodded almost defensively. It mattered to them. And the 310,000 didn't? I said quietly. That's not what I meant, she replied quickly. You don't understand. Then help me understand, I said. There was no anger in my voice, just something deeper, something steadier. She wrapped her arms around herself, like she was bracing against something invisible. They've always seen me a certain way, she began. Like I needed to prove myself, like I had to earn my place in their family. And you think hiding the truth helps with that? I asked. It's not hiding, she said, a little sharper now. It's managing perception. I almost smiled at that. Managing perception. That's what this is to you? I asked. Perception? It's important, she insisted. You don't get it, Dad. In their world, everything is about image, independence, strength. And accepting help from your father makes you look weak? I asked. She didn't answer immediately, but her silence did. I nodded slowly, more to myself than to her. So you erased me, I said. I didn't erase you, she said quickly. I just didn't highlight it publicly. You thanked everyone else publicly. That's different. How? I asked. Because it doesn't complicate things, she said. There it was. Not shame, not exactly. Convenience. I took a breath, steadying myself. And the loan? I asked. Where does that fit into your perception? Her expression shifted again, this time more guarded. I've been meaning to talk to you about that, she said. Of course you have, I thought. When? I asked. After tonight? After next week? After you're fully settled into this new version of your life where I'm just background support? That's not fair, she said, her voice tightening. No, I replied calmly. What's not fair is standing in a room full of people, listening to my daughter thank everyone who gave her a fraction of what I did, and pretending I'm okay with it. She looked away. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Really apologize. But instead, she said something else. Something I wasn't expecting. Maybe we should reconsider the terms. I blinked. The terms? I repeated. Of the loan, she clarified. Given everything, it might be better if we adjusted things. Adjusted. That word again. Carefully chosen. Controlled. What exactly are you suggesting? I asked. She hesitated, then met my eyes. Maybe we don't treat it like a loan anymore. Silence. Not the kind filled with confusion this time. The kind filled with clarity. You want it to be a gift, I said. I think it would simplify things, she replied. Simplify things. For who? I studied her face again, searching for something familiar. Something that reminded me of the girl who once sat beside me on a rainy afternoon, full of hope, full of gratitude, full of trust. But all I saw now was someone calculating outcomes, balancing relationships, managing perception, and quietly rewriting history. I see, I said, and I did, more than she probably realized. I've done a lot for this place, she continued, her voice softer now. I've taken risks. I've worked day and night. It's not like I didn't earn it. I never said you didn't, I replied. Then why does it have to stay a debt? She asked. Because it was never just about the money. But I didn't say that. Not yet. Instead, I looked past her, through the glass doors, back into the restaurant. Her restaurant. The one we built. Together. Or at least, I thought we did. People were still celebrating inside. Her in-laws stood near the center, laughing, proudly telling someone about how they helped make this happen. And suddenly everything aligned. Every small moment, every subtle shift, every quiet distance. I looked back at her. If I agree, I said slowly, what happens next? She seemed relieved that I didn't immediately push back. We move forward, she said, without complications. And without the truth, I added. She didn't respond. For a long moment, we just stood there, between two worlds, the one we used to share and the one she had chosen. Finally, I nodded. Not in agreement, just acknowledgment. All right, I said quietly. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. But she didn't realize what that nod really meant. Because in that moment, I wasn't deciding whether to forgive her. I was deciding something far more important, something she hadn't even considered. And as I turned to walk away, leaving her standing under the dim light outside her perfect, carefully constructed world, one thought stayed with me, clear and unshakable. If she could rewrite my place in her story so easily, then maybe it was time I decided what role she would have in mine.